everybody, welcome back to Moving Forward with Jennifer J. It's good to have you back. This is episode 135. If you watched last time, you know that it was a continuing story. So if you didn't watch 134, you probably want to go watch that first because I'm kind of doing the cliff notes of my story. You can either go to videos up at the top and start back at number 1, which is going to give you the whole story with all the deets. Or you can hear this little synopsis, but you will probably want to listen to the first half, which was episode 134. So I'm trying to remember where I left off, though. I think I was driving back from my sister's Verbo in she lived in Connecticut, but she was in Arizona. Yeah. So she has a condo waterfront property in Connecticut that she loves. But she was at a Verbo in Arizona, and I had visited, and so I was driving back to Kansas, and I was talking to God, and I was like, how am I going to move to Arizona? I don't have any family there, and I don't have any place to live. I don't have the money. I have 2 kids that live in Kansas 10 minutes away from me each. My daughter, 10 minutes north of me, has 3 of my grandchildren. My son, 10 minutes south of me, has 2 of my grandchildren. And then I have another daughter who's about 20 minutes north of me. She's not married yet. And then I have a son in Hawaii. But these 3 are all really close to me. And my grandbabies, if you're a grandparent, you know, they got my heart, man. I could see them whenever I wanted to. And I know now that I took that a little for granted. I didn't go see them every single stinking day. And I wish I would have because I miss them so much. But at any rate, I'm boo-hooing to God. How am I going to do this? And I was crying big old ugly tears, you guys. And less than 5 minutes after crying out to him with that, my sister from Connecticut calls me and she says, guess what? We just bought a house in Arizona. And I'm like, come again? What now? And she said, well, there was this open house across the street and Rod thought we should go through it, or we went through it, Rod thought we should buy it, so we did. And I'm like, what? And she says, they closed the end of February and they're gonna be in Kansas for 3 months, so why don't I just go live there? I'm like, okay, God, I'm sorry. I'm wiping away my tears. Oh, I'm sorry I didn't listen. I'm sorry I didn't trust you. I mean, how does that happen? I not only had a place to live, it was fully furnished. They hired movers to move all their stuff for them, and all their furniture, dishes, towels, everything that I needed to live was there in this beautiful brand new home, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, all to myself. It's crazy, right? And now I have family there too, right? My sister's there now. So my niece was there already. She works and has 4 kids, so they were there. And now my sister's there. And so that was amazing. So I get back home and I'm asking God when I'm supposed to leave, and he had clearly told me March the 1st. And that's when I found out when my sister closes, and like it all just, he told me I didn't have to be there till March the 6th, and that's actually the day her furniture was delivered. So it was just all really cool the way he worked all the pieces together. But I was talking to my friend Robin. Hi, Robin, if you're watching. And I was asking her, like, I don't understand why he's telling me to move on March the 1st or to leave Kansas March the 1st, but I don't have to be there till March the 6th. I don't understand. It doesn't take 6 days to get there. Like it's a 2-day drive. And she said, maybe you're supposed to go to the Potter's house. And I said, maybe I'm supposed to go to the Potter's house. That's an awesome idea. So I was praying about that, and I was asking God, do I have permission to go to the Potter's house? And that night, I turned on a sermon because I was watching, you guys, copious amounts of sermons. I was watching 3 to 5 sermons a day. Saturdays and Sundays, I was definitely watching at least 5. Weekdays, I was probably just watching 3, maybe 4. I was staying up really late at night. I was watching so many sermons. T.D. Jakes, Pilgrim Rest, Terry Mackey, Kenneth Martin at Greater Archview Baptist in Little Rock. I was watching Tony Evans. Who else? Priscilla Schreier. I was just watching so many sermons, you guys. It was crazy. And as I'm turning on TD Jakes this particular night, guess what the name of the sermon is? You've Got Permission. And some of the things he said in the very opening comments, well, he always opens with the Word of God, which is awesome, but then in some of his very opening comments, he was saying how you have permission, that thing that you're asking God for, you've got permission. And I just felt like God was telling me, like I even remember laying my head back on the couch at my house and just crying, silent tears this time, because I felt like God was speaing directly to me. I had just asked him if I had permission to go, and he's telling me I have permission to go. And so that was amazing. And then there's some things that happen. Too much to tell in one little crib, so I'm going to skip some stuff. But I go to the Potter's house. I have a sister in Dallas as well, so I go stay with her. She and I go to the Potter's house. It's a Wednesday night. And so TD Jakes sadly was not there. I was very disappointed. However, I did not know how blessed I was going to be by hearing Pastor Dobbins. And so James and Marshall were there. They were sitting in the front pew. The very front pew, doesn't have anything in front of it. It's just the seat. And that's where security sits. So we sat in the very front pew behind them, right? The first one that attendees could sit in. So they're sitting here. We're sitting kind of in the middle. James leans over and asks where we're from. My sister tells him. He says, "Oh, what brings you here from Kansas City?" Because she's from Dallas, but I'm from Kansas City. I get up and move around her, and I go sit by him, and I start telling him my whole story, right? I'm telling him everything. And how God told me to start a YouTube channel, and I don't know anything about YouTube, and I don't know, I'm not techie at all. And that's why the lighting's bad, and that's why the sound is bad. You guys, I don't know how to do this. I'm just doing it because God told me to. But I'm telling him all these things, right? And at the same time, he didn't know that I didn't have money to get to Arizona. I went on faith. I had $200. I got to Dallas. I wasn't sure if I was going to have to ask my sister to borrow money. I did not want to do that. I trusted God, and I got to Texas, and I probably had enough to get to the edge of Texas, but I didn't have enough to get through New Mexico and Arizona. I didn't have enough gas, and I didn't have enough money. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And I don't think I told James that. I might have told him I didn't have much money. I don't know what I told him. But anyway, Marshall is sitting on the other side of him, and he had been really quiet through the whole thing. James and I were talking, but Marshall was just listening. And at some point, he had been looking at his phone. He had been kind of like this, looking at his phone, messing with it. I didn't know what he was doing, and he said something about the Cash App. And I have the Cash App, so I thought I would show him how to use it, because I know how to use it. And so I pull mine up and I show it to him, and then I hear cha-ching. He wasn't asking how to use it. He was sending me money. And he sent me $450, you guys. I was so blown away, so blown away. And just look at God. That's all I can say is look at God. So I'm telling James we're sharing our stories. He was starting a YouTube channel. He didn't know much about it either yet. He's got music on his YouTube channel. Ooh, I wish I could link it. I'll try and link it so that you guys can go listen. He's got some good music, him and Marshall. At any rate, the sermon starts. Pastor Dobbins comes up, and his sermon is about use your voice. And pretty much everything he's saying in his sermon is everything I've just shared with James, everything we had just talked about. And we're just looking at each other. And at one point, James goes like this, like, I can't believe this is even happening right now. He's like saying back to us everything we just said. And it was amazing. And so when it was done, I had told my sister I wanted to stay at the end. I wanted to talk to the pastor if I could. And so she was sitting, waiting, and I was standing up, and I had my hands on the front of the pew in front of me. And again, I don't want you guys to doubt like I do, okay? Because if he said it, it's going to happen. But man, I needed reassurance. I doubted myself so much. Am I hearing him right? Is that me? Is that you, God? What is happening? Like, I was just so in disbelief, I think, that this is really happening. My prayers don't usually get answered like this, like that, you know, the second you say it. So my head's just spinning from all of this, months of this at this point, been like 6 months of this. And so, gosh, I even skipped over some of the good stuff, but you guys go back and watch from episode 1, you'll get all of the goodies. But I put my hands on the pew in front of me and I said, okay, God, if I'm really leaving here and I'm moving to Arizona, I'm leaving Dallas and I'm moving to Arizona. I'm not going back to Kansas. Would you please have the pastor come over here and pray with me? And he was standing on like the second stair at the time, and he had 5 or 6, 7 people around him. They weren't up there for an altar call or anything. They were all just chatting like service was over. And he looked up at me at that moment and he walked over to me. And he prayed with me. And then he put his other hand on my head and he anointed me to go and share the gospel. He commissioned me to go. And then he said, and God's telling me to tell you that book he told you to write, he wants you to write it. And I'm just like, I haven't told anybody about the book. And so, just blown away. So 6 months, I'm going to fast forward real fast. 6 months later, when I went back to visit the Potter's house, James and I are now friends, so he meets me there, we sit together, and it was actually Sarah Jakes Roberts that was preaching, and T.D. Jakes was there. I at least got to see him, but he wasn't preaching. But Pastor Dobbins was sitting just across the way from us. And so after service, I told James I want to go talk to Pastor Dobbins. So he said, okay, come on. So we went over there, and I said, I don't know if you remember me. And he said, you sat right there. How's that book coming? He knew who I was. 6 months later, you guys, I was so blown away by that. And I told him I had a publisher, and he gave me a big high five, and he said, look at God. And it was just so amazing, so amazing. So, anyway, back to where I was. So I moved, I got to Arizona. I was staying with my niece the night I got there. There was no furniture at my sister's house yet. And so I stayed with her, and the next morning I got up and I went to church, and I joined the church. And the pastor told the whole church that I had moved 1,200 miles because God said to, and it was amazing. He had me turn around and wave. I felt like the homecoming queen. I was waving with everybody. Hey, y'all. I was just so excited to be there, you guys. Since then, OCJ, I meet with them, and there's really just no connection, and I can't figure that piece out. So I got to keep my day job because it's remote. So they told me it was fine if I moved to Arizona. They set up a tax number for me so that I could move to Arizona. That was awesome. Got to share my story with my CEO. That was awesome. And he liked it, and he said, go, that's fine. So I'm there like March 5th to March 30th, and not knowing why I'm there yet. I'm just there. And I go on March 30th to Surprise, Arizona to watch the Kansas City Royals in the Cactus League at their spring training camp because I love sports and I love the Royals. And so I go to watch them, and I had discovered that one of my friends from my same, not my hometown, but where I had lived for 20 years, Paola, Kansas, one of my friends, and her husband and family lived nearby, 30 minutes away. So I found that out once I got here. And she was going to go, and then something came up where somebody was sick and she couldn't go. And then my niece was going to go, and she had somebody sick and couldn't go. So I ended up going by myself. And I tried to call my sister in Dallas, and the phone wouldn't work. I was in the mountains. I had no signal. Radio wouldn't come in. And when that happens, you guys, I always figure if I can't get a hold of anybody, God wants my attention, right? So I just talked to God. It's an hour-and-a-half drive. I talked to God. When I came home, I called Raquel. And I said, something big is about to happen. I can feel it right here, you guys. It felt like it was going to jump out of my chest. It was something so big right here. It was such a big, full feeling. I can't even explain it to you. And I said, something's about to happen. I thought it was Easter. It wasn't Easter. But later that night, I didn't realize it till I went back and looked through my prayer journal, but later that night, my sister from Dallas told me that there's this woman at her church that is the godliest woman she knows, and she hears from God, and God's told her to start a devotional for April, and she thinks I should do it with her. So I contact this friend of hers and I say, can I do this devotional with you? And she says yes. So April 1st, I start this devotional. April 9th, my church at Pilgrim Rest has a women's prayer breakfast. This was huge. There was like 350 women there at that one. This was after COVID. I guess they've had as many as 700 before COVID, but this was after COVID, so it was the first one after COVID. And there was about 350, but it was a big group of people. And so it was the year of yes. That was their theme, the year of yes. And all the sermons were about saying yes to God opportunities and stuff like that, right? So on day 30 of the devotional, Julie says, reading Numbers 11, she felt like when Moses was calling up the 70 elders in that, if you read Numbers 11, she felt like God was telling her to raise up 70 city leaders to duplicate what she was doing in Dallas, to train and equip women to share the gospel. And so she said, will you say yes to more information? So I said, well, took my little mouse and I said, yes, because it's the year of yes. So yes, I will. So she calls me about a week later. I think it was on Cinco de Mayo. She calls me and she's telling me all what they do. She's telling me I could be on staff, which made me cry because I've always felt called to missions, full-time missions. I've always felt like I should do that, but I've never had an opportunity to do it, never pursued it. And now I felt like God was saying, now you can be in full-time ministry. And we're all in full-time ministry, whether we work a secular job or not. So I hope you understand my verbiage might not be correct, but he was calling me to be in full-time ministry work and get paid for it. And so to do that as my job, 24/7, all in. And she also told me about a trip to India they just came back from, where they had performed 26 miracle healings. And she had a video she sent to me and showed me, and she was in it praying over a paralytic. It was amazing. And I'm crying really hard then. And she said, what's going on? And I said, in the sermons I've been watching, the word healings keeps coming to me, and I keep writing healings with a question mark because I don't understand why he's telling me that. So recently I went back and I counted how many times did I write the word healings, and it was 8, which in biblical numerology is new beginnings. But what I also found, you guys, is that between January of 22 and March of 22, the end of March, right before I heard of Julie King, who I had never heard of. The ministry that she's with is East West. I moved from East to West. She's with East West, and under East West's umbrella is her ministry, which is called Arise. And so between January and March, before I met her, I had written in my prayer journal, 70 elders. I need a team of women. I will arise. Arise, preach, heal. All these things. There was like 19 things I had written down before I ever knew she existed. It was like I prophesied. It's not like I did. I prophesied over myself and didn't even know it. And that thing that I was feeling that day when I called Raquel on March 30th, that something was about to jump out of me, was because this arise was about to jump out of me. This was coming. And so I'm going to fast forward just a little bit for you guys, and I'm going to skip some details, but fast forward to I am a full-time missionary now with Arise. I am supporter funded, so some people go and some people send those that go. So Paul went, and different churches sent money to Paul to help him live and survive and do the ministry. And so I go like Paul did, and people like yourself and churches and people support what I do. So the money doesn't go directly to me, it goes to East West. They funnel it and they give me a paycheck and ministry expenses. But let me get back on track because I can hear my timer going off. with Arise, she had told me, I don't know how that's ever going to intersect with OCJ, but I knew God was calling me to this, and the details will be in the other episodes if you watch. But I knew that he was, and so now Tammy has called me and said, you need to get with Siobhan. Siobhan got me with Thrive and with Foster 360, and come to find out, as I'm doing Bible study with young ladies at campuses where aged out foster youth live, so as they age out between the ages of 18 and 24, they can go live on these campuses to learn job skills and social skills and different things and save the money to be able to move out on their own, right? I can go do Bible studies there, but I have to be trained in order to be on their campuses. I have to go through training and have a background check and things like that. Well, guess who does all that? OCJ kids. And God just pieces it all together. You guys, we just have to be obedient. We just have to be obedient. There just is no other way. You just have to do it. So whatever he's calling you to do it. I am going to post my link for funding if any of you feel so led to support the ministry work that I'm doing in Phoenix and around the world, because I do go on short-term mission trips, and you can read about those on the link as well, because you are invited to go on those if you ever want to. But it's amazing what God is doing and the work that he's doing, and I hope that you know from my story that he is at work. He is definitely at work, and he has definitely called me to this work. And so I covet your prayers, and if you feel led to be a financial supporter, that would be awesome. And if you need prayer, please let me know. I have a long list, but I pray for an hour every day for those that are on my list, as well as a half day on Wednesdays, because there's a lot of people that need prayer, y'all. So feel free to add to my list. I do not mind at all. It is my honor and my privilege to pray for you. So let me know how I can. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.